Legal. The following presentation is intended strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional career counseling, psychological advice, financial planning, or legal counsel. The career coaching industry in the United States is largely unregulated, and the information provided in this video is based on historical trends, case studies, and publicly available industry standards. We are not licensed career counselors or therapists. Any decisions you make regarding your employment, career trajectory, financial investments in coaching services, or professional development must be made at your own discretion and risk. Do not interpret any statements in this video as guaranteed outcomes or a promise of future earnings, job placement, or career advancement. The examples shared are for illustrative purposes to highlight potential outcomes and do not reflect an average user experience. We strongly advise that you conduct your own thorough due diligence, background checks, and consultations with qualified professionals before entering into any contractual or financial agreements with a career coach, mentor, or professional development service. Imagine wiring $10,000 to someone who claims they hold the secret framework to unlocking your six-figure executive destiny, only to realize 6 months later that you are in a worse financial position, completely burned out, and entirely unemployed. This is not a hypothetical nightmare scenario. This is the exact reality for thousands of American professionals every single year. We are currently living through what industry insiders quietly refer to as the golden age of professional snake oil. In the United States today, the personal and professional coaching industry has exploded into a massive, unregulated $3 billion Goliath. Anyone, and I mean absolutely anyone, can wake up tomorrow morning, print out a business card, launch a slick website with a few fabricated testimonials, and legally call themselves a certified career coach. There is no federal oversight. There is no mandatory state licensing board regulating their methods. There is no national registry to check if the person guiding your livelihood actually has a track record of success or if they are just crowdsourcing generic advice from a weekend internet seminar. Let us look at a stark reality. Recent industry analyses indicate an unprecedented surge in individuals pivoting to become career coaches immediately after facing their own sudden layoffs or corporate burnout. While some genuinely want to help and have valuable insights, an alarming percentage are entirely unqualified to navigate the complex, high-stakes landscape of the modern American job market. They prey on the vulnerability of the unemployed, the underemployed, and the deeply unsatisfied corporate worker. They use aggressive marketing tactics, exploiting the collective anxiety surrounding stagnant wages, inflation, and corporate downsizing, to sell thousands of dollars in masterminds, weekend retreats, and proprietary resume revamps. The devastation left in the wake of a fraudulent or incompetent career coach goes far beyond the initial financial loss. It fractures professional confidence, steers candidates into dead-end industries, and wastes months of critical job-seeking time. In this hyper-competitive era of mass corporate restructuring, algorithmic hiring processes, and relentless economic shifts, the advice you follow can quite literally dictate the trajectory of your family's financial survival for the next decade. Consider a recent case study that circulated within professional human resources networks. A mid-level marketing director based in Chicago invested $15,000 into an elite career transition program. The coach aggressively promoted a methodology of entirely bypassing the traditional application process, instructing the client to launch disruptive, highly aggressive public campaigns on professional networking sites to demand the attention of Fortune 500 executives. The potential outcomes pitched by this coach were completely detached from historical trends in corporate recruitment. The actual result? The client was blacklisted by 3 major industry recruiters for unprofessional conduct, completely derailing a 15-year track record of steady career growth. This happened because the coach was fundamentally ignorant of the intricate nuances of executive decorum and corporate recruitment algorithms. They sold a fantasy, and the client paid the ultimate professional price. Let us delve deeper into the psychology of why highly intelligent, educated Americans fall for these professional traps. When you are feeling stagnant in your current role, perhaps overlooked for a promotion you clearly deserved, or suddenly facing a corporate restructuring, your brain naturally seeks rapid certainty. The psychological state of career instability creates a cognitive vulnerability. Predatory coaches understand this deeply. They do not sell you a structured, laborious plan of incremental skill development. They sell you the illusion of a shortcut. They speak in platitudes about unlocking your hidden potential, breaking through limiting beliefs, and manifesting an executive salary. They leverage sophisticated digital marketing funnels, projecting an aura of immense success through highly curated social media feeds, creating a psychological phenomenon known as the halo effect. Because they appear successful, your subconscious mind automatically assumes they possess the formula for your own success. But here is the most terrifying open loop you need to consider right now. How can you definitively distinguish between a brilliant, life-changing mentor who will actually help you navigate complex salary negotiations and a charismatic fraud who is secretly using your coaching fees to fund their own failing business model? The line separating the two is paper-thin, often obscured by clever branding and manipulative sales psychology. The devastating truth is that the damage of choosing the wrong guide is exponential. It is not just the $5,000 or $10,000 you lose up front. It is the compounding interest of lost professional time. It is the 6 months you spent executing a fundamentally flawed networking strategy. It is the hundreds of unread resumes sent into digital black holes because your coach insisted on an outdated, fundamentally broken formatting style that modern applicant tracking systems automatically reject. If you do not learn the precise metrics for evaluating a coach's true historical performance, you are playing a dangerous game of chance with your professional future. What if you could flip the script and evaluate a career coach with the exact same ruthless precision that elite corporate headhunters use to vet C-suite executives? That brings us to the exact problem this comprehensive masterclass will solve for you today. In this meticulously researched presentation, we are going to dismantle the entire American career coaching industry from the inside out. We will strip away the marketing jargon and provide you with a bulletproof, step-by-step educational methodology to find, vet, and secure a reputable career coach in the United States. We are not going to deal in vague advice, superficial networking tips, or hollow motivation. We are going to examine the specific credentials that actually carry weight in the corporate world, contrasting them against the meaningless certificates printed from unaccredited online mills. We will analyze real-world case studies of successful coaching engagements, breaking down the exact variables that led to verifiable career advancement and sustainable professional growth. You will learn the precise, non-negotiable questions you must ask during an initial discovery call. Questions specifically designed to immediately expose incompetence and force absolute transparency. We will walk you through the structural anatomy of a standard coaching contract, highlighting the exact clauses and red flags that should cause you to immediately walk away from the table. We will explore the entirely different archetypes of career coaches, from executive leadership mentors to specialized transition strategists, ensuring you understand exactly which professional aligns with your current career bottleneck. You are going to discover how to conduct independent, rigorous background checks that go far beyond reading curated testimonials on a coach's own website. By mastering the frameworks we are about to reveal, you will transform from a vulnerable consumer into an empowered, highly discerning professional. You will learn how to identify the rare, exceptional practitioners who base their methodologies on empirical data, historical trends in the labor market, and proven assessments. This is your definitive blueprint for safeguarding your professional trajectory, maximizing your developmental investments, and taking absolute control of your career path in an unpredictable economic landscape. Let us establish the foundational reality of the 2026 United States labor market. We are currently navigating a landscape fundamentally altered by the rapid integration of artificial intelligence across all sectors, the permanent normalization of hybrid corporate structures, and a highly unpredictable macroeconomic environment. The traditional corporate ladder has fractured into a complex lattice, leaving millions of American professionals feeling entirely unmoored. When you combine this structural uncertainty with the natural human desire for upward mobility, you create the perfect breeding ground for predatory opportunists. But to avoid these traps, we must first aggressively define what a reputable career coach actually is, and more importantly, what they are definitively not. A staggering percentage of professionals enter the coaching market fundamentally misunderstanding the service they are attempting to purchase. They conflate coaching with consulting, mentoring, or even clinical therapy, leading to misaligned expectations and disastrous financial investments. Let us break down these critical distinctions using historical trends and established industry frameworks. A consultant is an individual hired to provide a specific, done-for-you solution. If you hire a resume consultant, their job is to physically rewrite your document to match specific industry standards. A mentor is typically a senior professional within your specific industry who offers free or informal guidance based on their own lived experience and historical career trajectory. A therapist is a licensed medical professional trained to diagnose and treat clinical mental health conditions, trauma, and deep-seated psychological barriers that affect overall life functioning. A true career coach does none of these things. A reputable career coach is a highly trained facilitator of professional discovery and strategic action. They do not hand you a prepackaged list of jobs to apply for, nor do they function as an outsourced recruiter doing the heavy lifting on your behalf. Instead, they utilize evidence-based frameworks, rigorous questioning, and standardized behavioral assessments to help you uncover your own blind spots, articulate your unique value proposition, and construct a highly targeted, actionable strategy for market penetration. Their value lies in their ability to objectively analyze your professional narrative, challenge your limiting assumptions, and hold you relentlessly accountable to the execution of your own strategic plan. Consider the case study of Michael, a senior supply chain logistics director based in Atlanta, Georgia. In early 2026, facing a massive departmental restructuring, Michael panicked and paid $8,000 to an individual marketing themselves as a hybrid executive career coach and life strategist. Michael needed immediate, tactical guidance on navigating internal corporate politics and positioning himself for a lateral move to a competitor. Instead, the coach spent the first 3 months of their engagement leading Michael through vague visualization exercises, journaling prompts about his childhood relationship with authority, and generalized mindset training. The potential outcomes pitched by this coach were entirely disconnected from the urgent, pragmatic realities of executive survival. By the time Michael realized the process was structurally flawed, the restructuring had occurred, his position was eliminated, and he had wasted a quarter of a year on activities that yielded zero market value. He hired a therapist disguised as a career strategist, and the severe misalignment cost him his livelihood. This brings us to a critical, non-negotiable step in your journey: the absolute necessity of conducting a rigorous self-audit before you ever begin searching for external counsel. Imagine if you walked into a massive, sprawling pharmacy with a severe migraine, but instead of analyzing your own symptoms and reading the medical labels, you simply handed your credit card to the first salesperson who smiled at you and said they had a secret, proprietary pill that cures everything. This is exactly how most Americans approach the coaching industry. You must first diagnose your specific professional bottleneck. Are you fundamentally confused about what career path to pursue next? If so, you require a coach specializing in career exploration and foundational vocational assessments. Are you entirely clear on your target role but failing to secure interviews? You need a coach with deep, tactical expertise in modern applicant tracking systems, personal branding, and algorithmic resume optimization. Are you landing high-level interviews but consistently failing to convert them into lucrative offers? Your bottleneck is communication and positioning, meaning you require a practitioner who specializes in intensive interview preparation, mock scenarios, and salary negotiation frameworks. If you do not clearly define your precise problem, you will inevitably fall victim to a generalist coach who claims to be an expert in absolutely everything. Historical trends in the professional development sector show that generalists often provide shallow, highly generalized advice that fails to move the needle in highly competitive, specialized markets. You are looking for a specialist. You are looking for the exact mechanism that will unblock your current state of stagnation. Let us look at another distinct scenario that illustrates this point. Imagine a senior software engineer in San Francisco, let us call her Elena, who is technically brilliant but struggles profoundly with the interpersonal dynamics required to transition from a senior developer into a director of engineering. If Elena hires a career coach whose primary background is in entry-level resume writing and broad motivational speaking, the engagement will systematically fail. Elena requires an executive leadership coach who understands the nuanced psychological shifts required to move from an individual contributor to a people manager. She needs someone who can role-play difficult performance reviews, dissect her communication style in high-stakes corporate meetings, and provide actionable feedback on her executive presence. The alignment between the client's specific bottleneck and the coach's demonstrated area of expertise is the single most critical variable in predicting a successful coaching outcome. We must also aggressively address the dangerous illusion of the quick fix. The internet is completely saturated with advertisements promising explosive career transformations in 30 days or less. These claims are not just highly improbable, they are statistically detached from reality. Meaningful professional development, strategic networking, and the acquisition of high-income skills require time, sustained effort, and significant cognitive load. When you are evaluating a potential coach, their timeline for potential outcomes should align with realistic market conditions. A reputable professional will clearly communicate that securing a senior-level position in a competitive industry often takes a minimum of 3 to 6 months of dedicated, strategic effort. They will not sell you a magical shortcut because they understand that sustainable career advancement is a marathon of strategic positioning, not a sprint fueled by viral networking hacks and empty promises. You must treat the acquisition of a career coach with the exact same level of rigorous scrutiny that a venture capital firm applies when evaluating a multi-million-dollar startup investment. You are the investor, your career trajectory is the high-value asset, and the coaching fee is your capital deployment. You cannot afford to rely on emotional marketing or superficial confidence. But once you have defined your exact bottleneck and accepted the reality of the required timeline, a massive and incredibly dangerous obstacle remains standing directly in your path. The industry is flooded with completely meaningless certifications. You will see an alphabet soup of acronyms behind people's names, elaborate digital badges on their social media profiles, and bold claims of exclusive proprietary methodologies. How do you distinguish between a certification that represents hundreds of hours of supervised, rigorous clinical practice, and a digital certificate that was quite literally purchased for $50 after watching a pre-recorded weekend webinar? The difference between the two is the difference between a highly targeted, successful career pivot and thousands of dollars completely wasted. There is a very specific, hidden hierarchy of credentials in the coaching world, and if you do not know exactly what letters to look for, you are walking into a minefield completely blind. Let us decode this hidden hierarchy and completely demystify the credentialing industrial complex that governs the American coaching landscape in 2026. If you are going to invest thousands of dollars into your professional development, you must become fluent in the language of industry accreditation. Right now, the internet is saturated with digital certificate mills. These are unaccredited, entirely unregulated online businesses that sell the title of certified career coach for a few $100s. The process usually involves watching 10 hours of pre-recorded video modules, passing an unproctored, open-book multiple-choice quiz, and immediately printing a gold-foiled digital certificate. The individuals who purchase these certificates then plaster them across their LinkedIn profiles and professional websites, leveraging the psychological authority that the word certified carries in the American consumer mindset. They are legally allowed to do this because the industry lacks federal oversight. However, from a standpoint of professional competency and historical trends in career advancement, these purchase titles are functionally worthless. They indicate absolutely nothing about the individual's ability to facilitate a complex career transition, negotiate a six-figure salary, or reconstruct a fractured professional identity. To navigate this minefield, you must exclusively look for practitioners who hold credentials from independent, globally recognized governing bodies that demand rigorous, verifiable training and supervised practice. The undisputed gold standard in the coaching industry is the International Coaching Federation, universally known as the ICF. The ICF is not a training school. It is an independent regulatory organization that accredits training programs and credentials individual coaches based on highly stringent criteria. When a career coach holds an ICF credential, it means they have not just learned coaching theory. They have been actively monitored, evaluated, and tested on their practical application of ethical guidelines and core competencies. The ICF enforces a strict three-tiered hierarchy, and understanding these tiers is critical for matching a coach's expertise to your specific career bottleneck. The foundational tier is the Associate Certified Coach, or ACC. To achieve this, a practitioner must complete a minimum of 60 hours of specialized, ICF-accredited training, plus a minimum of 100 hours of verifiable coaching experience with actual clients. Furthermore, they must undergo 10 hours of mentor coaching, where a senior coach reviews their recorded sessions to ensure they are not dispensing dangerous advice or violating ethical boundaries. They must also pass a comprehensive written credentialing exam. An ACC-level career coach is generally well-suited for early career professionals, recent university graduates, or individuals looking to make straightforward lateral moves within their current industry. The next tier, which represents the sweet spot for the vast majority of mid-career American professionals, is the Professional Certified Coach, or PCC. The requirements here scale dramatically. A PCC must complete at least 125 hours of rigorous training and log a massive 500 hours of client coaching experience. This represents years of dedicated, in-the-trenches practice. When you hire a PCC, you are engaging a professional who has navigated hundreds of different career bottlenecks, corporate restructurings, and salary negotiations. They possess the pattern recognition necessary to identify historical trends in corporate hiring and apply them to your specific narrative. At the absolute apex of the industry sits the Master Certified Coach, or MCC. This is an elite designation. An MCC requires 200 hours of advanced training and a staggering 2,500 hours of client experience. These are the practitioners typically retained by Fortune 500 companies to coach their C-suite executives. If you are a senior vice president attempting to navigate a highly political transition to a chief executive role, or if you are attempting to pivot from a senior corporate position into a high-stakes entrepreneurial venture, an MCC is the level of expertise you require. Consider the case study of David, a senior IT infrastructure architect based in Austin, Texas. In early 2026, David decided he wanted to transition out of highly technical roles and into a strategic chief information officer position. He found a highly charismatic coach online who marketed themselves as a certified elite executive strategist. David paid $6,000 for a 3-month engagement. The coach's proprietary methodology consisted of rewriting David's resume with aggressive, overhyped language and instructing him to blindly direct message hundreds of tech CEOs on professional networking platforms. The strategy was an absolute disaster, resulting in David being ignored and professionally marginalized. The critical error? The Certified Elite Executive Strategist title was a completely fabricated credential. The coach had invented the acronym to sound authoritative, but had zero formal training in executive transition strategies. Now, imagine if David had understood the credentialing hierarchy. Imagine if he had specifically sought out an ICF professional certified coach who also held a background in corporate technology recruitment. That PCC would have immediately recognized that transitioning to a CIO role requires a fundamental shift in professional narrative, moving from a focus on technical execution to a focus on enterprise-wide business strategy and revenue generation. They would have utilized evidence-based assessments to identify David's leadership gaps and structured a targeted campaign focusing on corporate board networking rather than spamming executives. The potential outcomes of these two distinct paths represent the difference between career stagnation and securing a multi-million-dollar executive compensation package. Beyond the ICF, another highly reputable credential to look for is the Board Certified Coach, or BCC, administered by the Center for Credentialing and Education. This is particularly relevant because obtaining a BCC generally requires the practitioner to already hold a master's degree or higher in a relevant field, such as counseling, psychology, or human resources. A career coach with a BCC is uniquely equipped to handle the deeper psychological barriers to career advancement, such as crippling imposter syndrome, chronic professional burnout, or severe executive functioning challenges in the workplace. They operate at the intersection of practical career strategy and deep behavioral science. Your non-negotiable step in this process is independent verification. You cannot simply trust the digital badge displayed on a coach's website or the acronyms listed in their email signature. The digital age has made credential fabrication entirely effortless. If a coach claims to be an ICF PCC or a BCC, you must navigate directly to the official directory of the International Coaching Federation or the Center for Credentialing and Education. You must manually search the coach's legal name and verify that their credential is not only real but currently active and in good standing. If they are not in the database, or if they offer vague excuses about pending administrative updates, you must immediately cease all communication. You are witnessing a massive red flag, indicating a fundamental lack of professional integrity. But let us assume you have done your due diligence. You have identified your specific career bottleneck. You have researched the required tier of expertise. You have found a coach with verifiable, top-tier credentials that are currently active in the national database. You feel confident and you schedule the initial complimentary discovery call. You might think the hardest part of the vetting process is over, but you are entirely mistaken. The moment that virtual meeting begins, you are stepping onto a highly engineered digital battlefield. That 30-minute consultation is rarely a casual conversation about your professional goals. It is a psychologically calibrated sales funnel, designed by high-ticket marketing agencies to exploit your career anxiety, bypass your logical defenses, and extract a massive financial commitment before you have time to consult your spouse or your bank account. If you do not know the exact phrases and high-pressure tactics they are going to deploy the second you mention your salary goals, you will be manipulated into signing a legally binding contract that you will deeply regret. How do you survive the discovery call? And what are the specific, aggressive questions you must ask to instantly expose a hidden sales agenda. The moment you log into that initial Zoom consultation, commonly marketed as a free strategy session, a breakthrough call, or a career audit, you are stepping into a highly structured psychological environment. In the vast majority of cases within the 2026 commercial coaching landscape, this is not an objective assessment of your professional trajectory. It is a meticulously scripted sales funnel. These calls are often designed using advanced behavioral psychology to isolate your career insecurities, magnify your professional pain points, and position the coach's expensive proprietary program as your sole lifeline. Let us dissect the anatomy of these high-pressure discovery calls so you can identify the invisible strings being pulled. The standard script typically begins with the diagnostic phase. The coach will ask you to articulate your current career frustrations, probing deeply into your lack of promotion, your stagnant salary, or your toxic corporate environment. This is known in high-ticket sales as finding the pain. While a reputable coach also needs to understand your obstacles, a predatory coach will intentionally agitate this pain, creating an emotional state of artificial urgency. They want you feeling so desperate to escape your current reality that your logical, critical thinking faculties are temporarily overridden. Once you are in this heightened emotional state, they transition to the pitch, presenting a generalized, high-level overview of their program. Imagine the scenario of Marcus, a senior logistics manager based in Denver, Colorado. In early 2026, Marcus booked a free strategy session with a self-proclaimed executive transition specialist. Within 15 minutes, the coach had Marcus detailing his deep frustrations about being passed over for a regional director role. Instead of analyzing Marcus's actual leadership gaps or discussing historical trends in logistics recruitment, the coach immediately pivoted to a high-pressure close. The coach stated that their elite program was normally $15,000, but if Marcus paid the deposit right there on the video call, they would drop the price to $10,000. The coach utilized artificial scarcity, claiming they only had 2 spots left for the entire quarter, and that Marcus needed to make a decisive, executive-level choice right then and there. Marcus, feeling backed into a corner and desperate for change, almost wired the money. This tactic is rampant. A legitimate professional will never force you to make a multi-thousand-dollar financial decision under duress on a first call. They expect you to review their proposals, conduct independent research, and make a calculated investment. To survive this environment, you must flip the dynamic. You must take control of the interview. You are the employer. They are the candidate auditioning for the role of your career strategist. Here are the specific, unyielding questions you must ask to instantly expose incompetence and separate the elite practitioners from the aggressive salespeople. First, you must ask, can you walk me through your specific step-by-step methodology for a professional in my exact industry navigating this specific transition? You are listening very closely to their answer. A fraudulent coach will respond with vague platitudes. They will talk about optimizing your mindset, unlocking your inner confidence, and manifesting abundance. A reputable coach, grounded in empirical data and historical trends, will respond with a structured framework. They will discuss specific phases, such as conducting a comprehensive behavioral assessment in week 1, performing a rigorous audit of your market value and current collateral in week 2, and developing a targeted networking matrix for your specific target companies in week 3. They will articulate a process, not a feeling. Your second mandatory question is, what specific measurable metrics do you track to evaluate client progression throughout our engagement? The coaching industry is notorious for lacking quantitative measurement. If a coach tells you that success is simply about you feeling better about your career, you must end the call. While confidence is a byproduct of good coaching, it is not a measurable metric for career advancement. A high-level practitioner will track tangible data points: the number of strategic informational interviews secured, the percentage increase in recruiter outreach on professional platforms, the conversion rate from initial application to first-round interview, and the quantitative success of salary negotiation tactics. They operate on data, not assumptions. Third, you must ask the ultimate disqualifier. Under what specific circumstances have you refused to work with a prospective client or fired an existing one? This question is highly disruptive because salespeople are trained to close everyone with a pulse and a credit card. If the coach hesitates, claims they can help absolutely anyone, or states they have never turned a client away, you are dealing with a novice or a charlatan. A seasoned, reputable coach knows exactly who they cannot help. They know their limits. They will clearly state that they refuse to work with individuals who refuse to execute the agreed-upon strategies, Or they will explain that they refer clients out when the bottleneck requires clinical therapy rather than career strategy. The willingness to say no is the absolute hallmark of professional integrity. Let us look at another critical area of vulnerability during these calls: the handling of potential outcomes. If you ask a coach what you can expect at the end of a 6-month engagement, and they tell you that you will absolutely secure a C-suite role with a 40% salary increase, they are violating fundamental ethical guidelines. No one can control macroeconomic shifts, algorithmic hiring changes, or the subjective decisions of corporate hiring managers. A trustworthy coach will instead point to historical trends. They will say, based on case studies of past clients with your specific background who executed this exact framework, the typical trajectory involves landing 3 to 5 high-quality executive interviews within a 90-day window. They manage expectations through historical data, not guaranteed fantasies. During the call, you must also listen for the subtle red flags of outsourcing. Many highly visible online career coaches operate essentially as marketing frontmen. They use their personal brand to get you onto the consultation, but once you pay the massive invoice, you are quietly handed off to a junior, uncredentialed subcontractor who actually delivers the sessions. You must explicitly ask, will I be working directly one-on-one with you for every single session of this engagement, or will any portion of my coaching be delegated to a team member or a group coaching environment? Demand absolute clarity on the delivery mechanism of the service you are purchasing. If you deploy these questions with precision, you will immediately change the atmosphere of the room. The aggressive marketers will become defensive, attempt to pivot back to your emotional pain points, or try to rush you off the phone. The true professionals, however, will lean in. They will respect your rigor, appreciate your diligence, and answer your questions with transparent, data-backed confidence. Let us assume you have navigated this high-stakes consultation flawlessly. You asked the hard questions, the coach provided structured, logical answers, and you are feeling genuinely optimistic about the partnership. The call ends, and 5 minutes later, an email arrives with the subject line: coaching agreement and invoice. You open the attached document, ready to sign and launch the next phase of your career. But lurking within those 5 pages of dense legal jargon are specific clauses designed to trap you, strip away your consumer rights, and legally bind you to a sinking ship if the coaching engagement turns toxic. What are the hidden legal landmines in a standard coaching contract, and which specific sentences should make you refuse to sign? The standard coaching contract you receive in your inbox moments after a successful discovery call is the ultimate litmus test of professional integrity. During the consultation, the coach likely spoke in warm, empathetic tones about partnership, mutual growth, and unlocking your potential. But the legal document they require you to sign is entirely devoid of emotion. It is a strictly binding corporate agreement, and in the unregulated frontier of the 2026 coaching industry, these documents are frequently weaponized. They are drafted by defense attorneys specifically to protect the coach's revenue stream, effectively stripping you of your consumer rights before the first session even begins. If you blindly scroll to the bottom of the document and apply your digital signature without rigorously dissecting the liability clauses, you are voluntarily walking into a financial trap. The first and most catastrophic hidden landmine is the absolute non-refundable retainer clause. You must scan the document for phrases such as "all sales are final," "no refunds will be issued under any circumstances," or "payment is strictly for securing the coach's time, regardless of client utilization." This is an immediate, non-negotiable reason to terminate the relationship. Predatory coaches utilize absolute non-refundable clauses because they know their churn rate is exceptionally high. They anticipate that you will realize the program is hollow within the first month, and they are legally locking your capital inside their business account before you can object. A reputable, highly credentialed career coach operates with profound confidence in their methodology. While they will rightfully protect themselves against clients who simply refuse to do the work, their contracts will feature a highly specific, prorated refund policy or a clearly defined probationary window. Historical trends among top-tier international coaching federation practitioners show that they typically offer a mutual opt-out clause within the first 14 to 30 days, ensuring that if the working dynamic is fundamentally misaligned, neither party is held hostage by an inflexible financial arrangement. Consider the highly illustrative case study of Jessica, a senior healthcare administrator based in Boston, Massachusetts. In early 2026, Jessica was aggressively recruited by a boutique career transition firm specializing in medical executives. She paid an upfront retainer of $12,000 for a comprehensive 6-month restructuring of her professional brand. The contract contained a buried, ironclad non-refundable clause. By week 3, it became glaringly obvious that the firm was using generic, automated software to rewrite her resume, completely ignoring the complex regulatory compliance language required for hospital administration roles. When Jessica confronted the coach and requested a dissolution of the partnership, the coach simply stopped replying to her emails and instructed their legal counsel to point her to the non-refundable clause. Because she signed the document, she had zero legal recourse. She lost $12,000 in 3 critical months of her job search simply because she failed to negotiate a prorated exit strategy. The second major legal trap is the ambiguous scope of services clause. Predatory contracts are intentionally vague regarding what the coach is actually legally obligated to deliver. They will use broad, sweeping language such as providing ongoing career support, access to proprietary coaching modules, or periodic resume review. This ambiguity is a deliberate defense mechanism. If you ever attempt to claim a breach of contract because the coach is ignoring you, they will argue that they fulfilled their obligation by giving you access to a pre-recorded video portal. You must demand absolute, granular specificity in the deliverables section. The contract must explicitly quantify the service. It must state the exact number of one-on-one sessions, the precise duration of those sessions in minutes, the exact turnaround time for reviewing professional documents, and the specific service level agreement for asynchronous communication, such as a guaranteed 24-hour response time to all email inquiries. If the contract does not put hard numbers on the coach's time and attention, you are not signing a contract for personalized coaching. You are paying a premium subscription fee for an automated newsletter. You must also aggressively scrutinize the dispute resolution and choice of venue clauses. Imagine if you are a mid-level financial analyst living in Chicago, Illinois. You hire a career coach whose business is registered in a completely different jurisdiction, perhaps a holding company in Wyoming or an offshore entity. If the contract stipulates that any legal disputes, claims of fraud, or breach of contract must be resolved through mandatory, binding arbitration in the coach's home state, you have already lost. The travel costs, the out-of-state legal representation fees, and the arbitrary nature of the specified arbitration board will completely eclipse the $5,000 you are trying to recover. You will be financially starved out of your own lawsuit. A fair, reputable contract will allow for dispute resolution in a mutually agreed-upon jurisdiction, or utilize a widely recognized, neutral arbitration association that permits virtual proceedings. Furthermore, you must be highly vigilant in detecting the preemptive non-disparagement clause. This is the dark secret explaining why incredibly incompetent career coaches maintain flawless 5-star reviews on internet directories. Buried in the confidentiality section of their contract, they will insert a clause stating that the client is strictly prohibited from publishing negative reviews, sharing their negative experiences on social media, or discussing the coach's methodology with third parties under the threat of severe financial penalties. They are legally placing a gag order on you before you even begin working with them. While a standard non-disclosure agreement protecting the coach's genuinely proprietary intellectual property is standard business practice, a blanket non-disparagement clause that prevents you from warning the public about an unethical business practice is a glaring sign of a fragile, heavily manipulated reputation. If you see a clause demanding that you never speak ill of the coach or their parent company, you must immediately close the document and walk away. Conversely, you must ensure the contract includes a rigorous limitation of liability regarding potential outcomes. While this might sound counterintuitive, a reputable coach will explicitly state in their contract that they cannot and do not guarantee you will secure a specific job, achieve a specific salary figure, or receive an offer within a specific time frame. This is a critical marker of honesty. As we have established, no human being can control the macroeconomic variables of the 2026 American labor market. If a coach is willing to put a legally binding guarantee of employment in their contract, they are either lying, or they are utilizing an incredibly high-risk loophole where they will attempt to force you into a low-paying, irrelevant position just to satisfy the legal definition of the guarantee. The contract should guarantee the coach's absolute dedication, their adherence to scheduled timelines, and the delivery of all promised collateral, but it must treat your actual hiring as a potential outcome based on your execution of the strategy, not a purchased commodity. Let us assume you have navigated this legal minefield with absolute precision. You pushed back on the vague language, you successfully negotiated a prorated exit clause, you refused the gag order, and you signed a balanced, equitable agreement. You wire the funds, you schedule the onboarding session, and the real work finally begins. You are now inside the program. But within the first month, a creeping sense of unease begins to settle in. The sessions feel repetitive. The strategies feel disconnected from reality. How do you distinguish between the necessary, temporary discomfort of intensive professional growth and a fraudulent coach who is simply assigning you meaningless busywork to run down the clock on your contract? What are the exact week-by-week behavioral indicators that prove your expensive mentor is actually just a glorified cheerleader actively sabotaging your job search? Let us dissect the first 30 days of a standard career coaching engagement in 2026. This is the critical window where the marketing facade drops and the actual methodology is exposed. In the first 2 weeks, a legitimate high-caliber career coach operates like a clinical diagnostician. They are auditing your entire professional history, forensically examining your past performance reviews, and identifying the specific quantitative gaps in your executive presence or technical skill set. They are establishing concrete key performance indicators for your time together. They will tell you exactly how many targeted outreach messages you need to send per week, how many informational interviews you need to secure, and what specific industry certifications you need to acquire to remain competitive in the current macroeconomic climate. They build a data-driven roadmap based on historical trends within your specific sector. Conversely, a fraudulent coach will spend weeks 1 and 2 trapped in an endless loop of subjective self-discovery. If your sessions consist entirely of vision boarding, repeating positive affirmations, or taking derivative online personality quizzes without any direct, tactical application to your specific industry bottleneck, you are being scammed. This is the cheerleading disguise. They are intentionally keeping the conversation focused on your feelings, because feelings cannot be quantified or measured against a contract. If you are discussing your childhood relationship with authority instead of your current relationship with modern applicant tracking systems, your coach is artificially running down the clock to secure their retainer. Consider the case study of Robert, a senior director of manufacturing based in Cleveland, Ohio. In the first quarter of 2026, Robert hired a highly visible online coach to help him transition into a vice president role at a competing firm. By week 3, Robert had not touched his resume, nor had he initiated a single conversation with an executive recruiter. Instead, his coach had him writing daily journal entries about his limiting beliefs and instructed him to physically stand in front of a mirror to practice power poses before sending any emails. The potential outcomes of this methodology are completely detached from the brutal, metric-driven realities of the manufacturing sector. While Robert was busy power posing, his competitors were aggressively networking with private equity firms and updating their supply chain certifications. Robert lost 3 months of prime job searching time because his coach substituted therapeutic busywork for strategic market execution. As you move into weeks 3 and 4, the contrast between a professional and a predator becomes even more glaring. A reputable coach transitions aggressively into the execution phase. They are stress testing your interview skills through highly confrontational mock interviews. They are recording these sessions, playing them back, and ruthlessly dissecting your physical tics, your pacing, and your ability to succinctly quantify your past revenue impacts. They are teaching you how to build a decentralized network of internal champions at your target companies. They are forcing you into the extreme discomfort of high-stakes professional growth because they know corporate hiring managers in 2026 do not care about your personal journey. They care about your return on investment. A predatory coach, however, will introduce the trap of low-return busywork. They will instruct you to spend 10 hours perfectly aligning the margins on your cover letter, a document that historical data shows is rarely even opened by modern algorithmic recruiters. They will tell you to spend hours engaging with random, irrelevant posts on professional networking platforms under the guise of building an organic personal brand. This is a highly calculated manipulation tactic. By giving you endless low-stakes tasks, they create the illusion of momentum. You feel exhausted at the end of the week, so your brain assumes you are making progress. But when you look at the actual data, the number of interviews secured, the number of decision-makers contacted, the number of internal referrals generated, the board is completely empty. You must also be deeply analytical about the feedback loop your coach provides. If your coach agrees with every single strategic idea you propose, you are in immense danger. You are paying a premium for an objective, expert perspective, not an echo chamber. A profound indicator of a fraudulent coach is their inability or unwillingness to challenge your assumptions. If you tell your coach you want to pivot from mid-level marketing into algorithmic data science within 3 weeks, and they say they believe in you and suggest you simply manifest that reality, they are financially exploiting your ignorance. A true professional will immediately halt that conversation, present you with the historical data regarding the rigorous mathematical prerequisites for data science, and pivot you toward a realistic transition timeline. They will risk offending you in the short term to protect your career in the long term. Let us imagine a scenario involving Sarah, a mid-level financial compliance officer in New York City. Sarah was paying $400 an hour for a coach who exclusively provided positive reinforcement. When Sarah absolutely bombed a critical second-round interview at a major hedge fund, her coach told her that the universe simply had a better plan for her, and that the hiring manager's energy was toxic. This is professional sabotage disguised as empathy. A reputable coach would have demanded to know exactly what questions Sarah was asked, exactly how she structured her answers using the situation task action result framework, and would have pinpointed the precise moment she lost the interviewer's confidence. They would have used the failure as a forensic data point to correct the strategy. You must track the ratio of strategic confrontation to emotional validation. If the ratio heavily favors validation, your coach is prioritizing their own comfort over your career advancement. They want you to like them so you will renew your contract rather than push you so you will achieve your objective. You have to monitor the actual language they use during your one-on-one sessions. Are they using the precise vernacular of your specific industry? Do they understand the difference between a Series A startup and a publicly traded enterprise? Or are they relying on generic copy-and-paste business jargon from 10 years ago that could apply to any job on Earth? If you reach week 6 and you have not received a single piece of difficult, transformative feedback, and your calendar is filled with journaling exercises instead of interviews, you must accept that you have hired a charismatic liability. The contract you signed is slowly draining your bank account, while your professional relevance depreciates by the day. But recognizing the deception is only the first step. The moment you realize your coach is incompetent, you face a highly volatile situation. You cannot simply stop showing up, or they will send your remaining invoice to a collections agency and ruin your credit. You have to execute a precise, calculated exit strategy. How do you systematically document their incompetence, legally sever the contract without financial ruin? And what is the exact script you must use to confront a predatory coach who refuses to let you go? The moment you realize your career coach is fundamentally incompetent and actively bleeding your financial resources, your immediate biological response will be to initiate a highly emotional confrontation. You will want to schedule an emergency video call, unleash your profound frustration, and demand every single dollar back. You must completely suppress this urge. Confronting a predatory marketer on a live call is a catastrophic strategic error. These individuals are not highly skilled career strategists, but they are exceptionally gifted conversational manipulators. If you engage them verbally, they will immediately deploy gaslighting tactics, shifting the blame entirely onto your shoulders, claiming your lack of success is due to your inferior mindset, your failure to manifest the outcome, or your hidden resistance to their genius methodology. You will leave that call feeling confused, exhausted, and still legally bound to a toxic contract. Instead of reacting emotionally, you must instantly transform from a vulnerable client into a ruthless forensic auditor. We call this critical phase the silent audit, and it is the exact framework required to legally sever a coaching agreement in the United States in 2026 without destroying your credit score or draining your savings. The silent audit begins by completely changing the way you interact with your coach while maintaining a facade of compliance. You will continue to attend your scheduled sessions, but your objective is no longer to seek career advice. Your objective is strictly to gather documented evidence of their contractual breach. You must pull up the original master service agreement you signed and identify the precise deliverables they promised. Did they guarantee a 48-hour turnaround time for resume reviews? Did they promise specific, industry-aligned interview preparation? You are now tracking these metrics with absolute precision. Because recording phone calls without consent can violate wiretapping laws depending on whether you live in a one-party or two-party consent state. Like the stark legal differences between Texas and California, you must force all evidence into a written format. After every single useless session, you will immediately send a seemingly polite summary email. You will write, per our conversation today, I want to confirm your advice was to avoid applying through official corporate portals entirely, and instead send aggressive direct messages to the chief executive officer, and you are confirming you will not be reviewing my portfolio this week as initially outlined in our timeline. When the coach lazily replies to that email with a simple confirmation, You have just secured a time-stamped, legally admissible admission of their gross professional negligence and failure to adhere to the contracted scope of work. Consider the historical case study of Marcus, a senior cybersecurity analyst based in Atlanta, Georgia. In early 2026, Marcus realized his $10,000 executive coach was utilizing generic artificial intelligence software to generate all of his strategic career roadmaps, providing absolutely zero personalized industry insight. Instead of confronting the coach on Zoom, Marcus spent 3 weeks executing a flawless silent audit. He sent specific technical questions regarding compliance frameworks in the cybersecurity sector, knowing the coach had no knowledge of the subject. The coach replied with blatantly incorrect, generalized responses via email, repeatedly failing to deliver the bespoke executive strategy outlined in Section 4 of their signed agreement. Marcus compiled a 14-page PDF document containing screenshots, time-stamped emails, and a side-by-side comparison of the contract's promises versus the actual delivered reality. Once your evidence dossier is complete, you initiate the severance protocol. This is never done verbally. It is executed via a highly structured, emotionally vacant termination email. The tone of this communication must be entirely dispassionate, resembling corporate litigation, rather than a disgruntled consumer complaint. The subject line must explicitly read, "Official notice of contract termination and demand for prorated refund." In the body of the email, you do not use adjectives. You do not talk about your feelings, your disappointment, or your stress. You simply state that effective immediately, you are terminating the agreement due to a material breach of contract on their end. You will specifically cite the exact clauses they failed to fulfill, referencing the attached evidence you gathered during your silent audit. You will then state a precise, prorated dollar amount you expect to be refunded to your original payment method within 5 business days. Finally, you conclude the email by stating that all future communication must be conducted in writing, and that any attempt to charge your credit card for future unrendered services will be immediately reported as fraudulent activity. When a predatory coach receives this email, their reaction will follow a highly predictable, historically documented pattern. They will panic and then they will attempt to intimidate you. They will send a fiery response claiming that your refund request is denied, referencing the non-refundable clause you were forced to sign. They will threaten to accelerate the entire remaining balance of the contract and send your account to a third-party collections agency, threatening to permanently ruin your credit score right as you are trying to find a new job. This is the exact moment where most American professionals surrender out of sheer terror. You must hold the line, because you understand the mechanics of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the Fair Credit Billing Act of 2026. If the coach attempts to aggressively bill your credit card for a service you have formally canceled with documented cause, you immediately bypass the coach entirely and initiate a commercial chargeback dispute directly with your financial institution. You will provide your bank's fraud department with your evidence dossier, proving that the merchant failed to provide the contracted services and that you made a good faith, documented effort to resolve the issue directly. Financial institutions historically side with the consumer when overwhelming written evidence of a merchant's failure to deliver specific services is provided. If the coach actually attempts to deploy a collections agency, you do not panic. You send a formal debt validation letter to the agency via certified mail, demanding proof that the debt is valid given the documented breach of contract. In the vast majority of cases, when a collections agency sees a heavily documented dispute involving a consumer protection claim, they will drop the file, as it is completely unprofitable for them to litigate a messy, heavily evidenced contract dispute over a few $1,000s. Imagine the scenario of Sarah, a pharmaceutical sales director in New Jersey, who executed this exact strategy. When her fraudulent coach threatened to sue her for the remaining balance of an $8,000 contract, Sarah responded with a single sentence: "Please direct all further communication to the Consumer Fraud Division of the New Jersey Attorney General's office, whom I have copied on this email alongside my attached evidence of your deceptive business practices." The coach issued a full refund within 24 hours and never contacted her again. These predatory operations rely entirely on the silence, fear, and compliance of their victims. The moment you introduce objective data, regulatory oversight, and a complete lack of emotional reactivity, their entire business model collapses. You have now successfully navigated the darkest, most treacherous underbelly of the American coaching industry. You have protected your capital, successfully severed a toxic relationship, and maintained your professional dignity. But as the adrenaline fades, a very stark, incredibly uncomfortable reality sets in. You are completely back to square one. You still have a massive career bottleneck. You still need to navigate a brutal macroeconomic environment, and you still need high-level strategic guidance. But you are no longer naive. You know exactly how the public marketing funnels manipulate consumers, and you know you can never again trust a flashy website or a sponsored social media post. So, how do you actually find the elite, highly guarded practitioners who do not need to advertise because their rosters are permanently full? You must completely abandon the consumer mindset and learn how to penetrate the hidden, invite-only referral networks where the top 1% of corporate career strategists exclusively operate. What is the precise multi-step networking algorithm required to bypass the public noise and secure an introduction to an underground executive mentor? To access the hidden elite tier of career strategists in the 2026 American labor market, you must completely abandon the traditional consumer mindset. The professionals who operate at the absolute apex of this industry do not run targeted social media advertisements. They do not employ high-pressure sales teams, and they certainly do not offer automated digital certificates. They operate entirely on a closed-loop, invite-only referral system. Their rosters are permanently full, often with a 6-month waiting list, because their methodologies are deeply rooted in historical trends, proprietary corporate data, and highly guarded executive networking channels. For these elite practitioners, accepting a new client is a massive risk to their own meticulously curated reputation. If they endorse a candidate to a Fortune 500 board, and that candidate fails, the coach's network is compromised. Therefore, they rely on their former, highly successful clients to act as informal gatekeepers, filtering out uncommitted or unqualified prospects before an introduction is ever made. You cannot simply buy your way into their orbit. You must strategically engineer an introduction. The first phase of this multi-step networking algorithm is what industry insiders call the alumni velocity audit. You are not looking for coaches. You are looking for the highly specific footprints they leave behind. You must log into professional networking platforms and utilize advanced Boolean search parameters to filter for individuals who share a common denominator with you. This could be your undergraduate university, a former mid-level corporate employer, or a highly specific industry certification. Once you have this baseline demographic, you introduce the velocity variable. You are specifically hunting for professionals who have experienced a massive, nonlinear career trajectory within the past 24 to 36 months. A linear progression is moving from a senior manager to a director over 5 years. A nonlinear progression, the footprint of an elite career strategist, is moving from a regional sales director to a global chief revenue officer in 18 months, or successfully pivoting from traditional commercial real estate into top-tier artificial intelligence product management. When you identify these anomalous career leaps, you have likely found someone who utilized an underground mentor. Consider the case study of David, a supply chain logistics director based in Seattle, Washington. In early 2026, David wanted to transition into a massive, multinational e-commerce conglomerate, but was completely frozen out of the algorithmic application process. Instead of searching for a career coach online, David executed a targeted alumni velocity audit. He found 3 individuals who had graduated from his relatively unknown state university and had recently secured vice president roles at his exact target company. David did not send them a desperate message asking for a job referral, nor did he explicitly ask if they used a career coach. Instead, he deployed the Trojan horse outreach strategy. He sent a highly customized, structurally perfect message that appealed to their professional ego. He wrote, "Noticing your unprecedented transition from regional logistics to global VP within such a condensed time frame, I am currently studying historical trends in executive transitions and would deeply value a 10-minute discussion regarding the specific frameworks or strategic resources that guided your pivot." Imagine if you approach an executive by asking for a favor. Their defense mechanisms immediately activate, and they will likely ignore you. But imagine if you approach them by framing their career as a masterclass worth studying. You transform from a burden into an eager student. When David finally secured these informational interviews, he listened intently. During the final 3 minutes of the call, after establishing deep rapport, he asked the ultimate diagnostic question. If you had to attribute your nonlinear jump to one specific structural resource, external mentor, or strategic investment, what was the most critical variable? In 2 out of the 3 conversations, the executives eventually dropped their guard and admitted they did not do it alone. They revealed the names of highly specialized, unadvertised executive career coaches who operated entirely offline. Because David had built rapport and demonstrated high-level professional acumen, those executives agreed to facilitate a warm email introduction to their coaches. David bypassed the public noise entirely and entered the hidden market. The second highly effective algorithm for discovering reputable practitioners is leveraging the retained executive search backchannel. Most mid-career professionals fundamentally misunderstand the role of an executive recruiter. A recruiter does not work for you. They work for the corporation paying their exorbitant placement fee. However, executive recruiters are the ultimate arbiters of interview performance in 2026. They sit through thousands of candidate presentations every single year. They know exactly which candidates have been professionally trained to articulate their value proposition, and which candidates are relying on outdated, generic advice. If you have a highly specialized niche, such as algorithmic financial compliance or biotech regulatory affairs, you must identify the top 3 retained search firms operating within that exact vertical. Your objective is to secure an introductory conversation with a senior partner at one of these search firms. You position this call not as an active job search, but as an industry mapping exercise. You demonstrate your deep understanding of current macroeconomic trends within your sector. Once you have established credibility, you execute the pivot. You ask the recruiter a highly specific question. In your observation of the most successful candidates you have placed in the C-suite this year, are there specific executive communication coaches or transition strategists you consistently see producing the highest caliber of talent? Recruiters are highly incentivized to share this information. If you hire an elite coach, you become a more polished, highly placeable asset for that recruiter in the future. They will eagerly provide you with a short list of heavily vetted, battle-tested professionals whose methodologies actually align with what corporate hiring committees demand. Let us examine the historical data from a 2026 industry analysis of the executive coaching sector. The data revealed that professionals who source their career strategists through direct alumni referrals or retained search firm backchannels experienced a 65% higher success rate in achieving their targeted role and compensation package compared to those who source their coaches through public digital advertisements. The public market is designed for volume and broad appeal. The hidden market is engineered for precision and verifiable potential outcomes. You have now executed the algorithm. You leveraged the alumni velocity audit, you utilized the retained search backchannel, and you finally secured a coveted warm introduction to an elite underground executive career coach. You feel a massive wave of relief because you have finally found the genuine article. You are ready to wire the funds, sign the equitable contract you learned how to negotiate, and begin the work. But the elite tier of the coaching industry operates on an entirely different set of rules. They do not just accept your money because you were referred. Before they even allow you to sign a contract, they require you to pass a brutal, highly invasive diagnostic phase. They are going to send you a series of clinical, psychometric, and behavioral assessments designed to strip away your professional facade and expose your deepest psychological work flaws. What exactly are these advanced corporate assessments? How do they mathematically predict your likelihood of failing in a high-pressure executive role? And how can failing to interpret these results correctly cost you the partnership before it even begins? The diagnostic phase of an elite career coaching engagement is not a series of superficial personality quizzes designed to tell you what animal you resemble in the workplace. When you finally breach the hidden market and secure an introduction to a top-tier practitioner in the 2026 labor market, their immediate priority is absolute risk mitigation. Before they allow you to sign a contract, before they accept a single dollar of your capital, and before they attach their fiercely guarded reputation to your career trajectory, they will subject you to a forensic psychological and behavioral audit. They deploy enterprise-grade psychometric assessments, the exact same instruments utilized by Fortune 500 boards and private equity firms to vet chief executive officers before multi-million-dollar acquisitions. They are looking for the exact variables that mathematically predict your likelihood of failing in a high-pressure executive role. To understand why this is mandatory, you must look at historical trends in corporate failure. Extensive data analysis of executive turnover in the United States over the past decade reveals a stark reality. Highly compensated professionals almost never fail because they lack technical competence or industry knowledge. They fail because of behavioral derailers under extreme macroeconomic stress. When a corporate restructuring occurs, when supply chains collapse, or when a quarterly earnings report misses the mark, the executive's fundamental psychological wiring is exposed. Elite career coaches know this. They know that if they place a candidate who technically looks brilliant on paper, but possesses a hidden, highly volatile stress response, the placement will implode within 6 months, destroying the coach's referral network in the process. The most prominent instrument deployed in this phase is often a variation of the Hogan Development Survey, specifically designed to measure the dark side of personality. Unlike standard assessments that measure your ideal self when you are well-rested and relaxed, these advanced psychometrics measure how your professional facade cracks under exhaustion, heavy cognitive load, and severe corporate pressure. The assessment will mathematically map whether you become highly skeptical and paranoid of your colleagues during a crisis, whether you become excessively cautious and paralyzed by analysis, or whether you become arrogantly bold, refusing to listen to critical feedback from your team. Imagine the scenario of Jonathan, a highly successful regional vice president of sales based in Chicago, Illinois. In early 2026, Jonathan secured an introduction to an elite transition strategist to help him secure a national chief revenue officer position. He was sent the battery of psychometric assessments. Jonathan, operating from a traditional consumer mindset, attempted to game the system. He answered the hundreds of highly repetitive, intentionally confusing questions not with brutal honesty, but by selecting the answers he believed an aggressive, hyper-competent alpha leader would choose. He tried to engineer a flawless behavioral profile. This is the exact trap the assessments are designed to trigger. Enterprise-grade psychometrics possess highly sophisticated validity scales and internal consistency algorithms. When Jonathan submitted his test, the software immediately flagged his profile as highly curated, artificially manipulated, and statistically invalid. The system identified an overwhelming lack of self-awareness and a profound resistance to vulnerability. When the elite coach reviewed the data, they did not see a flawless chief revenue officer. They saw a candidate who was entirely uncoachable, deeply insecure, and fundamentally deceptive. The coach canceled the follow-up meeting, refused Jonathan's retainer, and permanently closed the door to their network. By failing to understand the purpose of the assessment, Jonathan sabotaged the partnership before it ever began. If you approach these assessments with absolute transparency, the real crucible begins during the debriefing session. You will sit across from the coach, either in a high-rise office or via a highly secured video link, and they will read your deepest professional flaws back to you in stark mathematical terms. They will look at the data and state, objectively, that you score in the 98th percentile for interpersonal volatility. They will explain that historical case studies indicate a professional with your specific metric profile will likely micromanage their subordinates to the point of mass attrition the moment a project falls behind schedule. They will systematically dismantle the professional narrative you have spent a decade building, stripping away your ego until nothing remains but the raw, unvarnished data of your behavioral reality. How you react in this exact moment determines whether the coach will accept you as a client. If you become immediately defensive, if you argue with the data, if you attempt to justify your past aggressive behavior by blaming incompetent former bosses or toxic corporate cultures, the engagement is over. Defensiveness is the ultimate indicator of a fixed mindset. An elite coach cannot build a robust market penetration strategy for a candidate who refuses to acknowledge their own structural weaknesses. They will calmly conclude the meeting and suggest you seek out a different kind of professional support. However, consider the contrasting case study of Elena, a senior engineering director in Silicon Valley. During her psychometric debriefing in 2026, the elite coach revealed that her assessment data indicated a profound, almost paralyzing aversion to corporate conflict. The data predicted that as she transitioned into the C-suite, her inability to aggressively defend her engineering budgets against dominant marketing executives would lead to catastrophic departmental failures. Elena did not defend herself. She did not make excuses. She leaned into the discomfort. She looked at the coach and said, "The data is entirely accurate. My avoidance of conflict has cost me 2 major promotions in the last 5 years. So what is the specific, tactical framework we are going to build to mitigate this risk and force me into productive confrontation?" By demonstrating immediate self-awareness, radical accountability, and a demand for strategic intervention, Elena passed the diagnostic phase. She proved she was coachable. She proved she viewed her flaws not as personal attacks, but as engineering problems that required complex strategic solutions. This is the exact psychological posture you must adopt. You must view the psychometric data not as a judgment of your character, but as the foundational blueprint from which your entire career transition strategy will be constructed. Once you survive this brutal diagnostic crucible, the atmosphere instantly changes. The coach shifts from being a forensic auditor to your absolute, unwavering strategic partner. You sign the contract, and you are finally fully on board into the hidden tier of executive career acceleration. You now have the elite mentor. You possess a devastatingly accurate map of your behavioral blind spots, and your coach has built a highly customized, aggressive roadmap for market penetration. You execute the strategy flawlessly. You leverage the hidden referral networks, you bypass the algorithmic application portals, and you find yourself sitting in the final round of interviews for a life-changing executive role. But as the hiring committee extends the initial offer, the most terrifying and financially critical moment of your entire professional life arrives. The company presents a compensation package that is fundamentally misaligned with your current market value. You are staring at a massive, multi-tiered offer involving base salary, equity vesting schedules, performance bonuses, and severance clauses. If you accept the initial offer, you are leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table over the lifespan of the role. If you negotiate incorrectly, you risk alienating the board of directors and having the offer completely rescinded. How do you leverage your elite career coach behind the scenes to engineer a high-stakes counteroffer? What is the exact psychological script you must use to extract a massive premium without appearing greedy? And how do you execute the final, flawless transition into your new corporate empire? The moment a corporate hiring committee formally extends an executive offer, an incredibly dangerous psychological phenomenon occurs. Industry behavioral analysts refer to this as the cognitive bias of relief. After months of grueling interviews, rigorous psychometric evaluations, and relentless networking, your brain is flooded with dopamine. The natural human instinct is to immediately express profound gratitude, accept the initial numbers presented, and sign the heavily watermarked PDF document to finally secure your livelihood. This is the exact moment where unguided professionals leave, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars on the negotiating table. Corporate recruiters in 2026 operate under an asymmetrical information dynamic. They know exactly what the absolute ceiling of the compensation band is, and they know that you do not. They are financially incentivized by their internal corporate structures to acquire elite talent at the lowest possible baseline cost. When you reach this critical juncture, your elite career coach steps out of the role of transition strategist and transforms into your shadow negotiator. They do not communicate with the company on your behalf, but they architect every single syllable you speak, every email you send, and every strategic pause you take during the final phase of acquisition. To navigate this successfully, you must first understand that high-level executive compensation is an intricate architecture, not a single static number. A predatory coach or a novice mentor will tell you to simply ask for 10% more on the base salary. An elite transition strategist, leveraging historical trends from thousands of successful corporate placements, knows that the base salary is often the least flexible lever in a major corporate budget. They will instruct you to perform a forensic analysis of the entire package. They are looking at the equity vesting schedules, identifying whether there is a one-year cliff or immediate monthly vesting. They are scrutinizing the performance bonus structures to determine if the targets are realistically achievable or mathematically impossible. They are evaluating the clawback clauses, the relocation stipends, and the comprehensive executive severance packages. Consider the highly illustrative case study of David, an incoming vice president of global operations for a major artificial intelligence hardware firm based in Austin, Texas, in the third quarter of 2026. The initial offer presented to David was a base salary of $275,000. David, exhausted by the 6-month recruitment cycle, called his elite coach, ready to accept. The coach immediately halted the process. Upon reviewing the corporate prospectus and the offer letter, the coach identified that while the base salary was competitive, the equity package was structured with a draconian 3-year vesting cliff, meaning if the company was acquired or if David was terminated without cause before 36 months, he would walk away with zero equity. Furthermore, the offer contained no guaranteed severance. The coach realized the hiring committee was transferring the entirety of the corporate risk onto David's shoulders. The coach then provided David with the exact psychological script required to pivot the dynamic. You never approach a negotiation from a position of personal financial need. You never mention inflation, your mortgage, or your lifestyle requirements. You strictly utilize the framework of value alignment and market calibration. David sent a meticulously drafted email to the Chief Human Resources Officer. He wrote, "I am profoundly energized by the strategic vision outlined by the board, and I am fully prepared to execute the operational turnaround we discussed. However, To ensure absolute alignment between my long-term commitment and the aggressive corporate milestones expected over the next 24 months, we need to recalibrate the compensation architecture. Based on current market data for this specific scope of global responsibility, I propose an adjustment to the equity vesting schedule to a standard 1-year cliff with subsequent monthly vesting, alongside a standard 6-month executive severance clause in the event of a change in corporate control. Notice the surgical precision of that script. David did not use the word more. He used the word recalibrate. He tied his request directly to the aggressive milestones the company itself had established, implicitly signaling that high-level performance requires high-level structural protection. By utilizing this collaborative friction technique, David did not appear greedy. He appeared fiercely competent, demonstrating the exact executive negotiation skills he would soon be utilizing on behalf of the corporation. The potential outcomes of this methodology are staggering. Historical data from top-tier negotiation firms indicates that executives who deploy a comprehensive, multi-lever negotiation strategy routinely increase their total overarching compensation packages by 15 to 30% without ever alienating the hiring committee. In David's case, the company conceded to the accelerated vesting schedule and granted the severance clause, effectively securing millions of dollars in potential future equity that he would have otherwise unknowingly forfeited. Let us examine another critical scenario involving Samantha, a senior director of healthcare logistics transitioning to a multinational pharmaceutical conglomerate in Chicago. During her negotiation phase in early 2026, the corporate recruiter explicitly stated that the base salary offer was at the absolute maximum of the approved financial band and could not be increased by a single dollar. An unguided candidate would have accepted defeat. Samantha's elite coach, however, understood that corporate budgets contain hidden pockets of discretionary funding outside of human resources payroll. The coach instructed Samantha to pivot away from the base salary and negotiate for resources that would accelerate her performance. Samantha successfully negotiated for a guaranteed $75,000 annual budget for ongoing professional development and executive coaching, a fully funded relocation package with a massive signing bonus to offset the disruption, and the guaranteed internal transfer of a highly rated senior executive assistant to her immediate team upon her arrival. She did not raise her base salary, but she massively upgraded her operational power and her daily quality of life. Once the final, upgraded contract is signed and the ink is dry, you might assume the coaching engagement is permanently concluded. This is a catastrophic misconception. The elite coaching methodology does not end at the signature. It extends directly into the crucible of the first 90 days. The historical failure rate for newly placed corporate executives is notoriously high, often occurring because the incoming leader misreads the internal political landscape, attempts to implement massive structural changes before securing foundational alliances, or fails to secure highly visible early wins. Your elite coach remains by your side to architect a flawless transition into your new corporate empire. Together, you will build a ruthless 90-day strategic roadmap. Weeks 1 through 4 are strictly designated as the listening tour. Your coach will instruct you to suppress your desire to prove your intelligence immediately. Instead, you will hold highly structured one-on-one diagnostic meetings with every key stakeholder, mapping the hidden political alliances, identifying the inherited operational bottlenecks, and locating the cultural landmines left by your predecessor. You will bring this raw intelligence back to your coach, who will analyze the data objectively, free from the emotional exhaustion of your new environment. By week 5, you transition into the execution of early wins. Your coach will help you identify 2 or 3 highly visible, low-risk operational inefficiencies that you can solve immediately. You execute these solutions flawlessly, instantly validating the board's decision to hire you and establishing a foundational layer of unshakable executive credibility. By the end of your first 90 days, you have not just survived the transition. You have completely dominated the landscape. You have transformed from a vulnerable, exhausted job seeker completely overwhelmed by a chaotic labor market into an elite, highly compensated corporate operator executing a masterful, data-driven career strategy. You have successfully navigated the darkest corners of the unregulated coaching industry, protected your capital from charismatic frauds, located the hidden tier of genuine executive mentors, and engineered a life-changing professional pivot. But as you sit in your new corner office, looking at the quarterly projections and the shifting macroeconomic indicators of the 2026 global market, you begin to realize that reaching the top is only the beginning of a much more dangerous game. How do you consolidate your new corporate power? What are the precise psychological tactics required to survive a hostile internal takeover engineered by a rival executive? And how do you position yourself not just as an employee, but as a heavily recruited candidate for a highly lucrative corporate board seat?